Corinda.
Yes, my name is Karonda Corley. I am a proud parent and disabilities advocate, and I sit here before you today representing Louisiana families of individuals with disabilities. As you know, our disabilities community actually have formerly incarcerated individuals. We also have survivors of sexual molestation, rape, as well as verbal, physical, and mental abuse. Our disabilities community have English language learners as well, as we have individuals that are non-binary individuals. So our eclectic population actually is proud to sit here, and we are speaking because I can tell you my story personally. As I was pregnant, my intimate partner used violence against me. I was pregnant with twins. I lost my child's twin. My partner used the system against me, the legal system. He first filed harassment against me. After he used the system and filed harassment, then he used domestic violence against me as a charge that I had to go before court and actually fight. It was the domestic violence counselor that actually observed him intimidating me in public, trying to continue to harass me while we were waiting to go before the judge. That counselor was not able to testify, but was able to go and have a private conversation with the judge and inform them of the intimidation that was being used. I was on bed rest all that time while I was going through court. I actually lost my child's twin. My child's father was not present to see my child come into this world. But as a result of all of that, I incurred legal expenses. Being battered by that person, I ended up having to use monies that I should have been using to take care of a child that came into this world that actually was disabled. That was monies that I had to use that I should not have to do. And for some reason or another, that is not something that is ever taken into consideration when we look at how we can actually fight these type of inaccuracies when it comes to our people. So I ask that in the study that you look at what kind of repercussion can we have for the domestic partner that is using intimate violence against that person and actually use the system as a weapon to hold that person there. People with disabilities, and parents of individuals with disabilities, our monies are limited. So when you ask for us to leave a partner that is subjecting us to a life that is not of one of substantial way of living, how can we do it? We want to go to a battered women's shelter, but unfortunately the battered women's shelter is not equipped to actually help us have our child with a disability to be present. It's not just the women, it's the men. And let's talk about those that are English language learners that do not know the English language to actually be able to seek out the help that is needed. I sit here before you on behalf of Louisiana families of individuals with disabilities because I want this task force to actually take that into consideration and make a recommendation for that, because our community, we are so disproportionately affected in a number of ways, but we will always be left behind until a task force really take us into consideration. I know Senator Barrett has had the opportunity to meet my child who is not verbal, that communicates with ASL, but I'm always asked about what happened to his twin. His twin is not here because his father made a conscious decision to pay high-priced attorneys to use the system against us. And we had to use the system correctly. So I ask that when we make recommendations for how we can actually make the laws actually work for everyone, because my child's twin is not here and that child does not have a voice, and that child needs a voice. So please give us a voice, not just our family, but all families of individuals with disabilities and those that are non-disabled, a real true voice and a real true way of life to actually not have any system be used as a weapon against them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Corley. If anybody have any questions that they would like to ask of them, please just hit your button. I just want to commend you publicly for always being so public and being a voice. Your son does have a voice, even though he doesn't literally have a voice. He does have a voice through you, because you are very vocal, and not just for him, but for the whole disability community. And I want to applaud you and thank you for your work, your labor, your commitment, because you're always there, and you're bringing us back to that single point where I think sometimes we forget. We forget about that population, and that those individuals. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, and I have made a note of that. So thank you for reminding us, and as well as the English language learners, right? And those who have those barriers, because we don't talk about that either. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Barr. And also, please consider those that use American Sign Language and those that are not verbal. I know that I've been bringing up many times about my child not being verbal and that my child use a communication device. My child also use American Sign Language. But what about those that don't have those means, that don't know how to actually communicate? You end up with maladaptive behavior. And so I hope that adverse childhood experiences could be something that could be considered, because my child, although he was not born while I was going through the court system fighting against his biological parent, I do think that the trauma is still there because he had to deal with a mother that was still trying to heal from the trauma that I went through and incurred while I was pregnant with him. So I do think that that there should be some type of repercussion for the individuals that are using the system, but also some kind of real true therapeutic help for those that have been victims of that or and become victors. And I thank you, Ms. Johnson, for really saying your story, because I could have ended up being in the same shoes as you. I do have a friend that the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated will actually recognize. Her name is Illyria Cyrus. She was a victim of domestic violence and lost her life in front of her children because of her husband taking her life. And she, just as well as I did, we went to the system for help, and the system failed us. So I don't want to lose any other people that I know and that I love, but I also think about how our situations could have been different, and we could have been one of the ladies that you spoke with in LCWA, because we could have responded differently, just trying to protect our life and our children's life. Yeah. So please take that into consideration as this task force when you make those recommendations.
Thank you so much. Don't move, because we do have a few questions. Ms. Laurie?
I wanted to say thank you to you both for sharing. It's really brave to sit at these tables as a survivor of violence and tell your story. And we have members of Louisiana Survivors for Reform who have talked about your sorority sister. And I'm so sorry for that loss, and really appreciate your input today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Laurie. Ms. Johnson?
Yes, I want to say thank you for sharing your whole experience and the loss of your child. As a person who is disabled, most people don't realize, because disability doesn't always show on the outside, but I am disabled. And one of my goals is to make sure disabled people are protected, especially in human trafficking. We often see a lot of victims with disabilities who become more vulnerable to situations and land in the justice system. And sometimes they don't even know why they're there. And we advocate for those individuals. And with your situation also with the legal system, that's something that we see often too. The mother doesn't have resources and the father does. It's very sad and horrific, and I don't know how to change that, but you definitely hit me hard, because I've heard this story over and over again. And I've sat in courtrooms with people. I've sat in family court fighting for the kid to go with the mom. And I've watched how money can do. And so I just want to thank you, and yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Um, you never know what's going to come up and come out during the committee hearings. You just don't know. You can't predict that, and you don't know how some things tie together. But they all come together, and so I'm just so glad that you came to the table and brought that back to our remembrance. And thank you, Ms. Johnson, for sharing again your own personal testimony, because it doesn't always show. And for somebody with someone with disabilities, this is something that's very dear to my heart, and one of the things that I'm often concerned about. If I live long, I mean, if I don't live as long, and trying to make sure that I'm creating a pathway so that he's successful and that he's not put in a place where that can happen. And so, as a lawmaker, my commitment is, how do I make everything better going forward so that those things that we know that we've witnessed in the past, our children are not subjected, or grandchildren, or anyone else, young children are not subjected to that we are creating a better pathway. And hope to God that at the end of this journey that I've been able to change some things and made it a little bit better. And so I just really again appreciate you, because you're always there, being that voice. And so we thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to speak, even though I'm hoarse right now.
Yes. Well, thank you so very much.